Speak to Andreas. Krieg is an associate professor at the School of Security Studies at King's College London, and he joins us live from London. So we just heard there from Tariq talking about those Israeli ground troops. They've resumed their movement again. This is after Israel broke the ceasefire. What's the policy here, especially when it comes to the Netzarim corridor?
Yes, I think what we've seen is that the Israelis for the last 2 months have been gathering quite a lot of intelligence on movement, whereabouts of Hamas cells, as well as potential whereabouts of the various hostages. And I think what they're trying to do now is further degrade, attack different cells and potentially kill some of the leaders of those cells, which they've done already over the last couple of days. And apart from that, obviously trying to seize more territory. I think overall in the strategic vacuum that the Israelis find themselves, particularly with the international community and Trump not really doing anything about it, I think the new deal the Israelis are suggesting now or putting on the table is we take, with every hostage you're not releasing, we're going to seize more territory. And I think this is part of what the far-right Israeli government wants to do anyway. It wants to achieve, it wants to show its constituency that it actually wants to seize territory and potentially never return that territory. And that would be overall the first step in the plan, in that very bizarre vision of the Middle Eastern Riviera that Trump has introduced, which kind of relies on ethnic cleansing. So I think we'll see a compartmentalization, and that's where the Netzarim corridor comes in, a compartmentalization of Gazan territory, which kind of undermines the freedom of movement of Gazans, kind of locking them up into smaller cells, and then potentially moving into these cells, seizing territory and then potentially holding it for quite some time.
And there seems to be a theme here, as you were saying, compartmentalization. We're also seeing this in occupied West Bank, for example, where they've been going into Al Jenin refugee camp and building these new roads, and seems to be a division of the areas. And then also you have the Rafah border crossing that still isn't open, as well as the other crossings. What's the situation there when it comes to the Rafah border crossing? Because you also have what's known as the Philadelphia axis.
Yeah, so the Philadelphia axis is part of this as well. I mean, the idea is that you're basically cutting off Hamas from any sort of supply chains. But obviously, in effect, what you're doing is you're cutting off the entire civilian population of their supply chains. And I would also add that Hamas has an immaculate tunnel system that is more, I would say, probably 50% still intact despite of 18 months of military operations. And so smuggling will continue. Hamas will be able to resupply itself. But obviously what doesn't get into the Gaza Strip is humanitarian aid and foods stuff and any sort of material support that people need to survive. And so that's why they want to hold on to the Philadelphia corridor as well, although this is a futile exercise. I mean, it's done under the pretext of kind of drying out supplies to Hamas, when in reality, it's about making Gaza unlivable. And that's been the policy, at least for the last 18 months.
And doesn't this all defy international human rights?
Absolutely, but I think we're beyond that point now. I think Israel has shown, the Netanyahu government in particular, has shown absolutely no regard for international humanitarian law. At every junction, they have taken an approach which kind of prioritizes military objectives, and these are tactical, operational objectives, over actually humanitarian law. And more than that, I mean, obviously for Netanyahu, this is not even about achieving military objectives, because there aren't any really anymore. I mean, you can degrade further. But in reality, this is a political project. That's a political project for the Netanyahu government to remain in power, to dismantle the Israeli state, which is what's happening domestically, thereby also solidifying the grip of the Netanyahu and the far-right regime that we see in Israel. And part of that regime, part of the survival of the regime, is catering to the far-right in Israel, who want the Gaza Strip to be resettled. They want an ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And they see a unique opportunity now in the context of Trump not having a real plan, having a very vague vision. And in the context of that vague vision, I think Netanyahu is trying to create facts on the ground. And there seems to be nothing the international community is doing about it. And if it was up to anyone, it's up to Trump. He's the only one who can stop Israel. America is the only one who can stop Netanyahu to actually achieving any of these goals. But what the Israelis are doing is incrementally encroaching on that territory, seizing, like salami tactics, like they do in the West Bank, seizing territory after territory. And as they do that, creating facts on the ground that are probably irreversible. And it makes, obviously, a peace deal or a ceasefire deal very, very unlikely, unless Trump really intervenes.
Okay, thank you very much, Andreas Krieg there.